Okay, so for fluency today, you have 3 questions. The first one says, what is the difference between 29 12/100ths and 6 and 8/10ths? So we know that difference means to subtract. So we have to subtract our numbers. So when we start subtracting, we need to make sure that we line up our digits and our decimal points. So I'm lining them up. My decimal point goes underneath the decimal point. And if I'm looking at the 6 is in the ones place, so I put the 6 in the ones place. And the 8 is in the tens place, so I put the 8 in the tens place. And then I bring my line up, and I start subtracting. I can put a 0 there as a placeholder. So I have 2 minus 0, which is 2. I forgot to drop the decimal point down, so you want to make sure you do that before you start subtracting. So I drop it down. 1 minus 8. If I have $1 and I want to give you $8, I can. So I have to go next door. So the 9 becomes an 8, and then 1 becomes an 11. So we have 11 minus 8, which is 3. 8 minus 6 is 2, and then 2, bring down the 2. So my answer is 22 and 32/100ths. Question says find the quotient. Quotient I know is the answer to a division problem, so I'm dividing. So my first step is to put 347 as my dividend on the inside. And then my next step is to put 7 as my divisor on the outside. And then I ask myself, how many times can 7 go into 3? So I put my times sign above my 7, and I say, how many times can 7 go into 3? 0 times, because 7 times 1 is 7, that's too big, so it would be 0. So I put a 0 up on top, and then I have to put a 0 below the 3. I subtract, and you subtract. 3 minus 0 is 3, and I have to now bring down my 4. And then I have to now ask myself, how many times can 7 go into 34? So you have to count your 7s, and I know 7 times 5 is 35, so that's too much, so it has to be 7 times 4. And I'd put my 4 up on top, so 7 times 4 is 28. So I put my 28 below the 34. And then I have to subtract those numbers. So I subtract 8, 4 minus 8 I can't do, so the 3 becomes a 2, and the 4 becomes a 14. So now I have to do 14 minus 8, which is 6. And then 2 minus 2 is 0. So then I will bring down my 7. I'm going to bring it down. So bring down my 7. And then I have to ask myself, how many times does 7 go into 67? The answer is 9, because 9 times 7 is 63. So I put my 6 below, and then my 3, and then I subtract those from each other, and that would be a 4, and then a 0. Now there's 2 ways we can sit here and say the answer. You can say 49 remainder 4, or what we do in 6th grade is we always put a decimal point after our whole number, and we add 2 zeros. Okay, and when you add 2 zeros, now I can bring down one of those zeros. And I get 40. And you just have to do 2 decimal points behind it. But since there's a decimal point here, you have to bring it straight up. So we bring it straight up. Okay, so now I'm looking for 40. 7 times what gets me close to 40? And I know 7 times 5 gives me 35. So I'm going to move my down. So I get 35. So I'll bring it down, bring it down, bring it down a little bit, and then I have to subtract those from each other. And I would get 0 minus 5, I can't do, so that 4 becomes a 3, and the 0 becomes a 10. So 10 minus 5 is 5, 3 minus 3 is 0, and then you bring down that last 0. And then you bring down that 0, and you get 50. So 7 times what gets you close to 50? And 7 times 7 is 49. So you put your 7 here, then we would put our 49. Subtract. And I would get 1. And you can keep going with bringing down more zeros, because you could add as many zeros as you need here, but I would say 2 decimal points after your whole number. So your answer for now is 49 and 57 hundredths. The last one says find the product. So we're finding the product, meaning we are multiplying. So we are multiplying our two numbers. So you have to first write your problem out without decimals. And then you put your 8 without the decimal point. And then your 5 without the decimal point. And then you begin, oops, that 5 needs to go up. Then you multiply. You have to ask yourself, 5 times 8 is 40. So I put my 4 up on top. And then you will have enough zeros over there. So I put a 0. 5 times 3 is 15. 15 plus 4 is 19. So I put my 9. Then my 1. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 1 is 6. 5 times 1 is 5. Okay, I'm done with this 5. So I haven't now go to my 8, but I need to put the 0 below my 0 because I have to stay in that line of numbers. I'm done with my 4. You don't need that anymore, and I'm done with my 1. So 8 times 8 is 64. So I put my 4, put my 6. 8 times 3 is 24. 24 plus 6 is 30. So you put your 3. And then you have your 0. Then you have 8 times 1 is 8, plus 3 is 11. So your 1, and bring up your other 1. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And then you have to add your two products together. 0 plus 0 is 0. 9 plus 4 is 13. You will have all the right numbers. You will not need to make any more. 13. 6 plus 1 is 7. 5 plus 1 is 6. 9 plus a blank space, which would be a 0. So 9 plus 0 is 9. And looking back into our original problem, we're done with these. We have to count how many numbers are behind the decimal point. So I have a 5, an 8, and a 3. So if I set those out and every number I say, I put a finger up. I have a 5, an 8, and a 3. I held up 3 fingers. So that means I'm moving the decimal point 3 times. Swoop once, swoop twice, swoop 3 times. And that's your answer.